Commuter car, excellent, all the range you'll need in the world and then some. Decent efficiency, really nice one pedal driving, quick, nippy for cities, easy to maneuver, park, that kind of thing. So there's a lot to like in the Bolt line. Hey, and welcome back to Plug and Play EV. I'm Steve, and today we're catching up with the Bolt EV recall, which has now been rumbling on for more than a year. So time to get back up to the figures, check out the last couple of quarters of battery replacements and see how we're going. So let's dive into the Bolt EV recall and where we're at. I thought we'd start with some of the things that we love about this car. Coming up on its 3-year anniversary, which means it's going back off lease. We're on around 33,000 miles here, got about 3,000 more miles in it before we turn it in early next year. So I thought we'd celebrate some of its strengths and the things that we still love on the Bolt after almost 6 years in the vehicle across 2 different leases. The recall has been the only blemish on our 6 years in these cars, first in the 2017 Bolt EV that we had through to middle of 2020, and this overlapped with it a little bit, this 2020 Bolt EV, with, you know, a few upgrades, a little bit more range, better cameras, that kind of thing. But both cars have been excellent for us, even as just single family car, taking us on long trips. You know, if you think for the first couple of years, then there wasn't really anything that could max out this car's fast charging capability. Kind of shows you how far we've come now that we're looking at 250 kilowatts being the kind of real sight that we set for fast charging. In the first 2-3 years of having that first Bolt EV, 55 kilowatts was more than enough. It was all that a lot of stations could do. Even when Electrify America started going in the ground, there weren't that many EVs that were capable of doing, you know, 100, 150, 200 kilowatts without paying big bucks. So, you know, through to all the way into 2020 even, we were perfectly happy with the fast charging rate given where the state of technology was. Obviously that's aged and it's become a bit of an Achilles heel of the Bolt EV at this point. The car still does a lot of stuff well. You know, we did the comparison with the Ioniq 5 when we first got that car, and the efficiency was right up there. Obviously it's a smaller car, it's you know, not supposed to be in the same class really, but you know, still packs in this car a 66 kilowatt hour battery pack as opposed to the Ioniq 5 77.4 kilowatt hour, so they're not giving up too much, and this car makes it up with the efficiency. See, right now we're at 4.4 miles per kilowatt hour around town over about 500 miles and some highway driving. The Ioniq 5 in this scenario would be more like 3.5, 3.6, so you claw a lot of that smaller battery pack back in terms of more efficiently using it. But there are other things as well. This car will swallow a lot of stuff. Once you get the back seats down, you've got 56 cubic feet of storage space back there, so it's done IKEA runs. We've been able to store a lot of stuff back there when we've really needed to, bikes, that kind of thing. We've fit 2 back there and a bunch of kids stuff. Then if we compare when we go into the towns with smaller streets near us, Cambridge, Somerville, down into Boston proper, there are a lot of scenarios where having a smaller car and something that's really nippy like the Bolt EV works really well. And it's not just the size, it's being able to zip in and out of those spaces really quickly. Tight turning circle, only really bested by something like the Volkswagen ID4. Some of the technology that was a little bit ahead of its time with the rear view mirror camera. A lot of data down there in the energy usage screen. And then probably one of the biggest things, the regenerative braking. Not only because it's a really well designed system, very simple and easy to understand. You know, you let off the pedal, the accelerator pedal, it comes to a full stop. That's exactly what we like to have. But it also has this little button back here for on-demand regen. Now we do have that in the Ioniq 5, and it will give you max regen mode when you hold it down, but it's very much regen on demand in the Bolt, and it's a bit more responsive. You find that it comes on immediately. In the Ioniq 5 it feels a little more like you have to hold it down longer, and it's also not necessarily designed to be used in quite the same way because you have 4 different stages of regen in those cars, and you usually toggle it to the one that you find most suitable for your particular driving situation. So in the Bolt EV, I prefer the regen on demand. It's really well done and was one of the first EVs to do it, to the best of my knowledge. The one pedal driving and regenerative braking in general is very well applied, and adds a lot of use around town, as well as the highway driving, where it still manages to be relatively efficient for the size and shape. The fact that it's you know, now a very affordable electric vehicle, one of the few that are out there below $30,000 starting MSRP, even for the brand new ones. Then you have the Bolt EV, not too distant in the price from that, with upgrades like the Light Super Cruise, the Sun and Sound package that we've looked at with the open sunroof. There's a lot of little things that just kind of crept into the Bolt line that make it very likable, and the recall notwithstanding, you know, this car would have continued to go on and sell very well as we hit the kind of gas price hikes and people starting to look at ways they can get away from combustion. So a shame that it did have that recall as an anchor on some of its sales, and the stop sale that kind of hit through the last quarter of last year and the first quarter of this year. But it's bounced back, the sales are looking healthy, and it looks like GM will now ramp production at least into the 2023 model year, and we await to see if there will be a 2024 model year of the Bolts. They certainly have some gaps between some of their Ultium models, so there may still be a place for the Bolt. If they can get it down to $25,000, even better, and then they have some credits coming in. So I hope there's a place for it. It's been a car that we've really enjoyed, and if we do look to go back to a second car for around town and local use, it will definitely be one of the top on our list. Okay, so moving on to the recall and the numbers, which I know a lot of people have been waiting for. Apologies, we missed the Q2 report. We will catch up now with the Q3 report and Q2, both added and in the bank. And that does bring us up to now a full 4 quarters worth of reporting. They did have a 5th quarter, but there was nothing done in that. They hadn't had any time to start replacing any of the battery packs. So effectively, we're 4 quarters in, a full year into the recall, and we have some pretty concrete numbers as to how far they've got. Some good news, some bad news. So as you'll know from the other videos, the recall was split into 2 groups, the 2017 to 2019 model year Bolt EVs and the 2020 through to 2022s. We'll look at the overall numbers first of all, just to give us a little bit of good news. So from a population of 109,000 vehicles in Q2, there were remedied 39,308 of that population, and the Q3 report, which was just released late October, has us at 49,771. So the maths say, you can see it's not quite 50% being complete, having a battery replacement, being back into the fold, and having an MSRP swap. Bunch of different permutations, but essentially those customers and dealer vehicles having been addressed. So pretty much half of all Bolt EVs having been addressed. So good news from that perspective. You know, a year coming by, that would push us out, if we said another year, to the end of 2023. But it's more who is in that population and which models are waiting for it. So knowing that 44,000 odd of that 2017 to 2019 population were done, and that close to 50,000 were remedied of the entire population, that only leaves a pretty measly 5,913 Bolt EVs from the 2020 to the 2022 model year, and bear in mind that could include a decent number of inventory 2022s that were going out to owners. So not a huge number, and continuing that kind of slightly slow pace that we saw for the 2020 to 2022 model years in the earlier quarters. Q2 was only 1,816, so there is some acceleration there, with the cumulative number being 5,913. You've more than doubled that. So they're certainly picking up pace a little bit in that later population of model years, but it's still, like ours, a lot of them sitting in there and kind of waiting for the pack. Hopefully a bunch of people have done what John did on the video that we made recently with the MSRP swap, getting into a newer Bolt EV or the 2022 Bolt EV, and getting a car that you know, has remedied a lot of the problems and given them a fresh battery pack, so they haven't had to worry about any of the kind of restrictions. But at the same time, there's a bunch of people living with that kind of 80% software limit, which they got for peace of mind, and it looks like they could be waiting a decent chunk into 2023, possibly even this time next year, if if the pace of that population continues at the current level that it is right now. And you can see that disparity when you look at the two population groups and how many have been completed. It's more than 3/4 with the 2017 to 2019 model year. About 77% of the vehicles in that population being remedied at this point. And when you come into our population group of 2020 to 2022s, it's just 11%. So again, bunch more quarters in front of us at that pace to get a battery pack in. For ourselves, I highly doubt at this point, with about 3 months left on the lease, that we're really going to see a new pack. Hasn't bothered us, obviously, because we have the Ioniq 5 for the road trip. Kind of goes to show that local driving, you don't really think about the state of charge limitations very much. A lot of people set them to 80 or 90% anyway, and you don't need to go down that low because you just kind of plug in at night and top up, or at work, or wherever you happen to top up in your daily routines locally. Based on what we're hearing from techs and people within GM, or actually on the ground doing the work, it sounds more like it's a shortage of dealership time and willingness to do it in some areas. So that obviously goes down to geography, how many dealers you have in your area, how much space they've got to store battery packs, how much willingness there is to spend that technician and service center time on replacing battery packs, which they do get compensated for, but you know, maybe getting a bit old for them at this point. Doesn't sound like it's battery production that is limiting the Bolt EV side of things, at least. And if it is at dealerships, maybe you want to call around other dealerships, that kind of thing, and see if they have any access to battery packs and can get you somewhere on the list. And it does reset the battery warranty, so you may well get a very extended life from your vehicle. For those people, this is a pretty good scenario. The longer the better. For some people, it's something that may become a bit of a grind as they head into a second winter with the range capped and limitations on charging. So there's the update. Let us know what you think of not just the recall, but budget EVs, the $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 level, and how we head into 2023 with that entry level of the market. What would be on your shopping list? What do you hope to see in new models for the next year? And will the Bolt EV be on the list, or the EUV even? Let us know down in the comments, and always thanks for watching. Cheers.